In this video, I'm gonna try to beat every Poppy Playtime chapter with just the blue hand. You know, the one we get at the start of the game that basically does nothing. That's all I can use. In Poppy Playtime, the Grab Pack hands are essential for completing puzzles, parkouring, defending yourself, and more. But I will be forbidding all of that to see how far in the game I can go with just the blue hand, and how little I can use any other hand to beat each chapter, if any. This challenge was one of the craziest things I've ever tried to do in a game before, but it led to some even crazier results. Yes! 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 No. Let's go! Is this actually real? So I entered chapter 1 to officially begin the challenge, and at first it mostly played like normal. Okay. Yellow, pink, green. Alright, the only Grab Pack hand I can actually use. After getting the blue hand, which is fair game in this challenge, I opened up the lobby door and got the key from Huggy to eventually power on the next room. After Huggy disappeared and I walked down a couple hallways, I made it to the storage room, which is where the challenge really starts, but immediately I'm given a huge problem. Here, we are supposed to complete a few puzzles and acquire the red Grab Pack hand to open up the vent and escape, but not being able to use the right hand, I was almost immediately stuck. Except I had thought about this beforehand and had a trick up my sleeve. So I need both Grab Pack hands to get past this door, but I know a trick. You see, back when Poppy Playtime first released and people started speedrunning the game, a technique was found where if the player managed to get on top of the conveyor belts up here and went into the last one in the room, it would lead them outside of the map. And after performing a nearly impossible jump to this area here, the player can clip inside and successfully reach the next room without the red hand. And I had actually already known about this trick beforehand, so I was already loaded on the original chapter 1 build where this glitch worked to try it for myself. No. Alright. Please! Nice. Now we just gotta make this jump. All the way over here. Don't need the red hand. And... okay. We just have to make this jump. I don't even remember where you're supposed to go. Alright. Go! No! Okay, so I wasn't kidding when I said this jump was nearly impossible. But the thing that really makes it hard is that for some reason, this glitch only works when the player is using a completely fresh save. Meaning, if I fail the jump and respawn at the nearest checkpoint, the vent I needed to jump to simply wouldn't spawn. So for every attempt, I had to restart the entire game from the beginning, including the intro VHS tape and Grab Pack tutorial, which were unskippable in the original version, just to get one more try, only to fail again and again. No! It definitely took a bit of practice, but after about an hour or so of trying, I finally had a breakthrough. Come on. Oh my gosh. Finally. I was super excited, but it definitely didn't last long. I've never done this before. I don't know how to get into this event. Here? Uh-oh. I think I'm stuck. No. I got stuck. No. Somehow, I had managed to get myself stuck on the vent when trying to clip back in. So, it was back to the beginning for me. Again, I spent try after try attempting this jump, only to get stuck every time it actually ended up working. It took an unreasonable amount of trial and error, but after an entire afternoon of trying, I had this attempt. Oh. Come on. Where can I get in? You had to jump! Oh my gosh! I'm in! Okay, where do I go? Down here? Oh my gosh, I did it. I made it into the make a friend room with one hand. I mean, it randomly popped onto me after loading up the checkpoint, but I still didn't use it. It was a great accomplishment, but the celebration was quickly cut short. As proceeding into the next room, I needed to power up the make a friend machine to collect a Cappy toy and then encounter Huggy. However, to activate the make a friend, I had to complete a simple but devastating power puzzle that required both hands. And so, without powering on the make a friend machine, I was pretty much stuck. I couldn't find a single exploit to escape this room or anything, so in order to complete this, I would have to use my first red hand. Well, at least that's what I thought. See, when desperately looking at some of the more updated speedruns for Poppy Playtime, I saw that there was a newer exploit that could change everything. For whatever reason, going back to the beginning, if the player loads up a checkpoint after finishing the Grab Pack VHS, they can grab this trash can in the security room and enter this code as if it was never opened, which this time actually shuts it with the Grab Pack hand inside. Then, going into this corner and simply pausing and unpausing the game, the trash can will pull the player outside of the map. And for whatever reason, if you parkour over to the lobby, there's a box under Huggy Wuggy that can be dragged infinitely. And if you drag it over to yourself, you can ride it to a platform at the very top of the map, and then drop down into a very specific area and reload the game. That, when done at the exact right time and place, will spawn the player inside of the Huggy chase, no make a friend machine required. In order to do this, I had to play on a slightly newer version of the game so I could limit my FPS to 30, which is required for this glitch. So I did that, which thankfully let me skip the intro cutscene, and I gave it a try for myself. Okay, so here we are on a different version of Chapter 1, and this one should have a different glitch. I entered in the security code before acquiring the Grab Pack and reloaded the game to make my first attempt. Grab this trash can and this code should reset. Yes. So red, yellow, pink, green. And now it shuts. Need to lower my frames to 30 seconds or 30 frames and then go. Now from here, it took me a little while to get the glitch's exact positioning right, but seemingly in no time, I had finally got it. I'm out. Okay. No. Oh, well. Wasn't expecting to be here. Alright. It wasn't necessarily the easiest trick in the book, so I tried it a few more times and was eventually able to get on the box and proceed to fly up in the air free as a bird. Down we go. Whew. After reaching the sky, I tried to land exactly where the speedrunners were to hit the checkpoint. I think I have to be right about here, I think. Alright. Please work. Oh, man. That is tricky. Alright, I kept trying this over and over for even longer than the vent trick from before, so much so that after giving it a while and even desperately flying the box around the entire map to try and find other checkpoints, I realized this glitch was going to be way too hard for someone like me, and to beat it, I needed some help from the best. So I asked around speedrunning communities for tips on doing this trick consistently, and wouldn't you know it, I got a reply from a user named Mushy Meow, the current Chapter 1 world record holder, who made and sent me a video showing precisely how to line up the glitch perfectly every time. And so, revitalized, I hopped back on to give it another go, where I kid you not, on my first try, this happened. Okay. Alright, come on. Come on. Oh my gosh! We're here. Oh my gosh. We did it! It worked! I was in the Huggy Wuggy chase without ever using the second grab pack hand. From here, the game was simple. I completed the vent chase, finishing off Huggy on the way, and walked through the catwalks into Poppy's room, completing the chapter. And guys, with just the left hand, we completed chapter 1. So I completed chapter 1 with no blemishes on the record so far, but chapter 2 introduces our first new hand that I can't use, so I'll admit I have no idea how I'm gonna make it out alive. If you're enjoying this video so far, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps me out and helps push out the video to more people. Thank you guys. So, chapter 2 is where I quickly realized this challenge was not going to be some walk in the park. Okay, chapter 2, here we come. After spawning back into Poppy's room, I moved through the exit and made it into the janitor's office to collect Elliot Ludwig's office key. After entering the office, I hopped into this vent to go into the power room, and like chapter 1, I'm given a power puzzle that is impossible with my one hand. Not only that, even if I manage to complete this puzzle, the gate that it powers on also requires 2 hands to open, so I'd have to find another way out of this area. But thankfully, like chapter 1, I already was loaded up on an old version to try out a glitch I had heard about to hopefully help me get past the gate. I do believe that I should just be able to walk right through this and then drop down here. And then can I grab that? Uh-oh. Oh. Okay. No! No! I just completely missed the jump. Come on. Come on. Come on. There we go. We did it. So I successfully made it. I then could make it into the slide room with Poppy and jump down into the game station. Now, the good news is that once I make it to the game station, all I have to do is enter the train and put in the preset code to essentially skip the rest of the chapter. The bad news is once I got down there, I realized that I needed to complete another power puzzle to open the game station door. And by the way, the train door itself could only be opened with this chapter's new hand, the green hand, that I not only would have to get, but would have to use to enter. So how could I get past this? Well, after doing some research, I found out about another infamous out of map glitch in the Poppy Playtime speedrunning space, to where essentially if the player drops down through the hole in the wall like I did originally, grabs onto this grapple, then performs a glitch where when they jump and spam the grab pack button at 30 frames per second, the game will send them flying out of the map, and if done at the proper speed and timing, they can even fall right into the game station. So I gave this trick a few tries of my own. Let's still go in here and drop down here. Okay, so I can grab that, then I just have to... Oh! Where am I going? Uh-oh, I don't think I did it right. Please. No, not the abyss. Oh. Come on. Okay. I had made it into the game station. The lights were all off because I skipped powering them on, so it's super dark, but I made it, putting just one more door in my path from completion. Now, to be honest, from here, I fully intended to just say screw it and get the green hand to complete the chapter using the right grab pack one time. But before I did so, I wanted to make 100% sure that it wasn't possible to somehow get into the train without the green hand. And after doing some research, I found this clip. So to explain this super confusing clip, the player launched themselves out of the map like I did. However, they paused the game directly where the train was supposed to spawn and waited for the game station to load around them, letting them skip ever using the green hand. Now, this is great because it means getting inside the train is technically possible, but when trying it myself for over 5 hours, it turns out that it actually wasn't possible, at least for me. Because for one, actually getting this trick to work, according to the very few speedrunners who've actually done it, was about a 1 in 1,000 chance, or less than 0.1%, and that's for the best of the best. But even worse is I recently bought a new computer that had some upgraded hardware, which consequently meant that the game station would quickly load in before I could ever reach the spot I was supposed to, and even if I was perfectly accurate, the train would load in before me, blocking me off. This sucked a lot. There's no other known glitches to get inside of the train without literally downgrading my computer, and while the chapter 1 hero Mushy Meow offered to help me look for some potential new glitches to help me out when I brought it up, the chances of actually finding something were slim, and it seemed like it was time to move on. But then the next day, I got a message on Discord from somebody named Wheat with no caption and an attached video that showed this. Oh my goodness, they found a new glitch that worked for my challenge. Apparently, when on top of the train, if the player grabs onto the furthest left handle in the game station control panel, and then drops behind the train at an angle before spamming the F11 key a couple times, which toggles the game's full screen mode, the grab pack completely bugs out and sometimes can phase the player right through the wall into the train. So while it was by no means easy, it was officially possible for me to do, and all I had to do was get on top of the train to give it a go for myself. Holy crap, guys. Okay, so a new trick was apparently just discovered. Huge shout out to Wheat. It should help me beat this without ever using the right hand. So we're on the railroad tracks. Then we need to get on top of the train. There we go. There we go. Then I need to grab this. Where is it? Let me grab this one. No, I'm stuck right here. Look how close I am. Grab the musical memory lever. And if I just jump at the right place, it should work. Come on. No, no! What happened? As usual, it took me way too many tries to not accidentally launch myself into the void, but after a few goes, I had this attempt. Whew. Alright, grab the... Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Let's go! Let's go! Is this actually real? I'm inside of the train. Somehow, some way, I made it inside of the train with just the blue hand. Now, to enter the code, fortunately, in this version of Chapter 2, the symbols and colors were the same every time, with only the order they needed to be pressed randomized. So I guessed the code a couple times. Pulled on the horn to start the train, and as it reached the end, pulled on the brakes to officially mark the game's ending. And I thought I was gonna need 2 hands for that. Guys, we have done it. Chapter 2 is completed. So once again, carried by the absolute amazing people in the Poppy speedrunning community, I had done it. But next up is Chapter 3, introducing multiple new hands, a longer chapter than ever, and even the infamous Catnap boss fight that I didn't know if I was ready for, but I guess we will see. So at this point, I've somehow managed to avoid using the second grab pack hand completely. But going into Chapter 3, the challenges were about to be ramped up to 10. Alright. First, I exited the starting garbage disposal room and ran through all of the pistons as normal, no right hand needed. I even was able to get past this battery powered door that conveniently only required the blue hand to power on. But then afterwards, I ran into a big problem. To open the next door, I needed to use the green hand to power it on, leaving me stuck once again. Now, obviously, this might look impossible to pass doing this challenge, but you know the drill, let's break the game. So there is a popular revolutionary tech in the original Chapter 3 build, which as always I was already playing on, where for whatever reason, if the player grabs onto a movable object and drags it towards them, they start to become airborne. And conveniently, in the room after the first piston parkour, the devs left a hole inside of the roof, which I could exploit using this trick to get out of the map and then parkour over the green hand room I was stuck in. Granted, it was extremely difficult with one hand, so I'll spare the 20 minutes of me flopping around the room trying to get up there. And here's what happened once I finally did. There we go. So now we just have to parkour up through this. It's kind of hard to see, but then we go down through here. And this is the ollie room that we couldn't get past before, but now we can just walk right over it and into the tunnel. After making it over to the train station, I had to do a little trick used in speedruns to position the player here and reload the game, which when done correctly, it loads us back into the map in the train station. Let's go! Let's go. We're now in here. However, as great as this was, there was a huge problem lurking in my next obstacle, getting into the playcare. In order to power on these doors that lead to the tram that takes us to playcare, of course, we have to complete another two-handed power puzzle to activate the gates. Now, at first, I thought getting past this area was impossible without the right hand, since even if you parkour over the gate to get to the tram area that way, the tram itself simply doesn't spawn in without the power turned on and will often crash if you go into the area it's supposed to be. However, while trying to grab some footage of my game crashing when doing this after the fact, I accidentally discovered that sometimes the game won't crash and will instead spawn me into this weird void inside of the tram that, after riding in almost complete darkness for a while, would fix itself and load me into the playcare as normal for the rest of the game, saving me from having to power on the gate. However, because I didn't discover this glitch until after the fact, I did end up using the right grab pack hand to power on the gates in my playthrough, and I didn't want to re-record the video and fake all my reactions to the rest of the challenge, so you'll have to forgive me for this one use. It doesn't happen for the rest of the challenge, but moving on, this puts us into playcare. Collecting the gas production zone key from Ollie and heading into the area, it's time to commence the most game-breaking glitch used in this entire video. See, here we have this gate that you're supposed to enter after Catnap ambushes us in this room during one of the final scenes in the game, taking us to his boss fights, which requires going through hours of gameplay and dozens of dead ends for this challenge. But believe it or not, there's actually a way to skip all of that. And it's even pretty simple. If you use the flying trick from before by the lift to go all the way up and into this notch leading out of the map, then fly all the way to the top of where the lift would go, you can trigger the loading screen that will spawn the player all the way to the Catnap boss fight. It wouldn't be easy with just one hand, which is much more difficult to control, but I grabbed the Grab Pack 2.0 from the room, not for the purple hand, but actually so I could use it as a flashlight and tried out the glitch for myself. Alright, so if we can use the flying glitch from before to get all the way to the top for the Catnap fight, we can pretty much skip the entire game. Let's give it a try. So far, so good. Nice. Okay, we're up here. Now we just have to make it to the top. All right, we're doing so good right now. Okay, now if I go into here and up against this corner, come on. It should just load me into the boss fight. Holy crap. Okay. Now here we are at the Catnap boss fight. This is where things get real tricky real fast. See, I knew this was where I'd actually have to break the challenge for the first time no matter what. Because to start the fight, you have to power on one of the door's defenses, which requires powering it with a green hand. And to finish Catnap, we have to grab the final green hand charge and shoot the electricity at him. I don't know whether to count that as 2 uses or 4, because I technically only use it in 2 different instances, but I also shoot the grab pack 4 separate times. So to be conservative, we'll just count it as 4. However, if you've played the boss fight, you know it takes way more than 4 uses of the right hand to beat it. Basically, we have to survive Catnap's onslaught for 180 seconds while he comes down from hallways and the roof over us. If we see him coming, we have to not just use the green hand to shoot smoke throughout the halls, sending him a different direction, but also sometimes have to jump with the purple hand too. And that's not all, as some of the Catnaps are hallucinations. So to tell them apart, we have to shoot the hallucinations with the orange flare hand, costing even more uses. So basically this boss battle was completely designed to ruin my run. But if done absolutely perfectly and also getting really lucky, it's actually possible to outsmart Catnap without using any of our defenses. You see, of the 5 places Catnap can spawn, the 2 in front of us are completely indefensible without the right hand, guaranteeing death if he comes that way. However, the 2 on our sides are equipped with battery slots that are meant to be used as defense mechanisms to make the game easier until we have to put them into the center console. But if we just leave them on the ground instead of keeping them in the slot, there's a chance that Catnap can come down one of the halls, and we can simply place the battery back, allowing us to defend ourselves. While the grand prize of this challenge is in the 5th location he can spawn, the roof. When Catnap chooses to attack the roof, we simply have to just shut the door on him, making it an easy defense. But he can only stop attacking us here if we either A, fully close the door, or B, he jump scares us. Meaning, if we just carefully close the door partially over and over again without letting him attack or closing it all the way, he will actually just be stuck up there opening it until the fight ends. So essentially, I just had to hope that Catnap only attacked from the sides and eventually from the roof, where I could just wait him out from there, which wasn't just hard because it required me to get very lucky, but also if I died, I get brought all the way back to my last save checkpoint, which in this case would be the entrance to the gas production zone, forcing me to repeat the flying glitch every single time I messed up. But hopefully I wouldn't need to do that too much. I have a feeling this is not going to be easy. So unfortunately, to start the boss fight, I'm gonna have to use the green hand 2 times. All right, let's see if we can manage to beat this fight. Okay, so we can use this to stop that catnap. Oh, I hope that one's fake. I have a feeling this one's probably real. Is that one the real one? No. Yeah. Dang it. Oh, alright, we made it back. Alright, another attempt. Oh gosh, there's a catnap coming that way. And one coming that way. I have a feeling I'm guaranteed to die here. There's no way they're both fake, especially since no others are coming. This one's probably real. No. Alright, we're back. Okay, there's one catnap here and one catnap here and one catnap here. Let's hope this one's real. Alright, that one was the real one, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure when it screams, it's the real one. So, like, yeah, that one didn't scream, so. And this one will be fake, too. They need the next battery. Please come from the roof. Oh my gosh. I need to focus. I'm sorry. I'm gonna be quiet. Grab it quick. Nice. Alright, all I have to do is wait 40 seconds. This is the most nervous I've been to play this game in so long. 5 seconds. Use it! And we did it! Oh my gosh, it only took a couple tries too. Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Catnap was officially dead, and while I had to use the green hand a couple more times to finish him, the last obstacle of this chapter was complete. I went down the elevator once again and entered the lift room to find Poppy. I listened to her ramble about all of her friends dying or something cringe like that. Then I got on the lift and was lowered down, officially completing chapter 3. So shockingly, you can get all the way to chapter 3's ending only using one of the right hands a handful of times, but chapter 4 lurked around the corner with a longer game than ever, more puzzles, a new hand I couldn't use, and a ton of other challenges that'll probably make me regret ever making this video. I knew Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 was going to be hard going into this, but somehow it managed to be 10 times more difficult than I was expecting. So going into the start of the chapter, once again playing on its original build for the sake of glitches, I went down the lift with Poppy and grabbed the battery from the storage room to power on the escape, thankfully only using a blue hand. Next, I ran throughout the caves a bit and ran into our first of many huge obstacles. Here was a door that was tied up with a rope and needed to be burned with the flare hand. Now, as far as I know, sadly, there's no known way to pass through this door, so I would be forced to use my very first flare hand. Moving into the toy graveyard, I'm able to walk all the way to the prison entrance, ambushed by the mini Huggies that I had to just run from to avoid using the flare hand once more. So, I just sort of have to run from these guys. I can't really shoot at them. Oh shoot, I'm gonna die. Please go away. Okay, there we go. After exiting the toy graveyard, I was met with another killing blow, being that in order to get into the next area, the train station, I had to complete this purple hand parkour. And after spending an hour or so looking for ways to get myself up, unfortunately, it was pretty clear that I couldn't, and I was forced to use my first purple hand as well. However, on the bright side, I could skip the second one by just parkouring past it. After reaching the train station, I went and grabbed the key to open up the control panel door, leading me to be stuck once again with a power puzzle that was required to power up the train. So I had to cave, using the purple hand once again to power it on, and finally made it into the train. Once making it into the prison, things didn't get easier, as I climbed up into the vent to open up the prison door and made my way across the block, moving down into the next room, blocked off by some smiling critters that once again required me to use the flare hand to clear them out. Now, up until this point, you've probably noticed that I haven't been able to skip much of any of the hand requirements so far, yet there were still dozens of more obstacles that I would have to find a way around. Well, thankfully, that was all about to change. You see, what the player is supposed to do after this is to go collect the red grab pack hand, fight off a bunch of nightmare critters with the flare hand, use the red hand to escape the prison block, then make it into the lobby, where it's used a couple more times to unlock the next area of the prison, only for it to be used even more there. However, there is a huge skip to get past all of this involving the nightmare critters boss fight. See, normally, after grabbing the red grab pack hand, the door we enter in is supposed to shut and the critters will spawn in for a couple minutes that we have to fend off. However, if the player opens the door, then quickly grabs the grab pack hand mid-animation, it will get stuck open and they can escape quickly, which is good. However, what really matters is that they can then take one of the nightmare critters to the top of the prison block and jump on them while they're attacking, which, when done at the right time, can actually launch them out of the map, allowing them to quite literally walk past the rest of the prison section. This trick did still require me using the red grab pack hand once more to make it to the top part of the block, but regardless, I gave it a shot. Open it, and then quickly grab that. I can go through here and completely skip the nightmare critters attack scene, but I will need it here in a second. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to use the red hand right here, but trust me, getting up here will save so many more uses. Entering this code, what is it? I don't remember. 3, 2. Then I need one of these critters. Where are you? Come here. Icky Licky, I need you more than ever right now. Up here. Come on. No, please don't hit me. Okay, I need you to launch me up here. No. This way. Yes. 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 Let's go. First try. We're out of the map. I successfully made it out of the map. From here, I was able to walk into and past the lobby, making it into the next section of the prison. And then over here, I could jump by this room, where I was able to trigger a checkpoint indicated by the VHS icon in the top left that allowed me to reload the game and spawn in past the prison. Now, to beat the puzzle in the next room, unfortunately, once more, it required me to use the red grab pack hand to complete. But after that, things get a lot better, as I officially made it to the room where we encounter Yarnaby. The doctor maniacally shows them off to me, and then I make it to the next couple of storage rooms while Yarnaby lurks around. Now, thankfully, Doughy comes in clutch and does most of the work here. In the first room, we are locked in, but thankfully he unlocks it for us. And in the second room, I'm supposed to shoot the flare hand in the corner here to distract Yarnaby, but if I just wait long enough, Doughy does it for me. After making it out of that room, Yarnaby chases me down this hallway, which was easy enough, and after a couple more grab packless rooms, I encountered Pianosaurus and, most importantly, Doughy the Doughman, who guided me through the next few puzzles that once again didn't require any hands I couldn't use, leading me all the way to the safe haven. I listened to the Poppy and Doughy yapathon before being tasked with finding and defeating the doctor to collect his Omni hand. I then exited the safe haven to go find the doctor, where I'm given another unskippable power puzzle out by the railroad tracks that required me to use the right hand once more to open the door to the next area. Now, what's supposed to happen after this is the player finds the entrance to the doctor's home, the domain, and tries to enter it, only to be ambushed by Yarnaby, who drags us into no man's land for the next section of the game. However, doing this requires the red hand to open the doctor's domain door, and another red hand to open the exit of no man's land after completing the section. But thankfully, there's actually a skip to get past all of this. See, before encountering Yarnaby, we have to use this grapple on the crane to pass a gap in the floor. However, for some reason, if the player is going at the right angle and jumps while simultaneously pulling on the grapple for a split second, it will give the player a little jump boost that, when done correctly, can actually be used to parkour onto this truck here. Then the player can parkour into this little gap of spikes, allowing them to get onto the crane. They are then able to climb up the crane and walk onto this invisible wall at the top, leading them into this corner on the right that takes them to the roof of the doctor's domain. Then the player needs to parkour through a course of rocks above the map and eventually reach this general area. And finally, when changing the game's frames to 30 FPS, if the player walks forward, the game will bug out and will phase the player through all the walls, which when done perfectly can land them right into the domain, skipping the entire Yarnaby section and taking us straight to the doctor. Now, as cool as this is, at least for me, this trick was one of the most difficult in the entire challenge so far. First off, reaching the truck itself took almost perfect timing and positioning, which was very rare to come by. But even when I did manage to get on top of it, I then had to parkour into the spikes, which was debatedly even harder, as the spikes hitboxes didn't line up with the textures at all, and if I wasn't on the perfect spots, I would simply slide off. Then, if I managed to get both of those to work in a row, I had to parkour all the way to the top of the doctor's domain and hope that my positioning was perfect enough for the glitch to work. This trick, as you could probably tell, is incredibly precise. I had actually spent nearly the entire day beforehand practicing this one glitch and still wasn't able to hit it, but today I was determined to finally get it done. There we go. I had made it to the top of the rocks, and all I had to do was land the final trick. Alright, now I need to drop my frames to 30 seconds and just pray I drop in the right place. Here we go. Oh my gosh, I'm in. Let me, come on. No, no, no. Oh no, please tell me it loaded me in there. Oh no. So I legitimately did the trick successfully here. I just panicked when I landed somewhere close and fell off the map before I could secure it or hit a checkpoint, which is hilarious in hindsight, but genuinely was soul crushing at the time. I tried it for another little while, and for as long as it was taking, I had actually gotten quite good at landing the jumps consistently. It went from taking like 30 minutes to land on the crane to only every few tries. So after trying it for a little while longer, I had this attempt. There we go. All right, we're trying this again. Please work, please work. Okay. Okay. We're right here. We're right where we need to be. Oh, we did it! Oh my gosh, we did it! Let's go! Oh my gosh, that took me so many hours. So many hours. I was inside the doctor's domain. Finally! I then started moving throughout the doctor's puzzles pretty much as normal, at least up until I reached this lab room, where you're supposed to scan this door before the doctor freezes the blue hand, and you have to use the right hand however many times to complete a few puzzles and activate this scanner, which finally lets it free. However, thankfully, there is a way to bypass all of this by simply opening up the lab door, grabbing onto the blue scanner, then when the door in front of us opens, move forward to trigger the game's next checkpoint and reload it, which spawns me back in, but with the front door to complete the puzzle open and the blue hand is still free, allowing me to complete the rest of the puzzle with just the blue hand. After making it out of this room, I entered the secondary labs, where I simply just had to collect all of the experiment codes to open the escape. But it was once I escaped that room that I came across an even more difficult obstacle than the Doctor's Domain glitch, this parkour section. What the player is supposed to do is use the provided blocks to build up to the purple hand platform, then use the purple hand to shoot up to this rock and swing over to the next area. But of course, I didn't want to use the purple hand, so I spent like an hour trying to build up the blocks in some kind of way to skip using them entirely, only being able to get about 90% of the way up. But then, when doing some more research on speedruns and whatnot, I found out about a new glitch that could help me out here majorly. Being that if the player grabs on to the very bottom of an object at a very specific spot, then drags the object towards them, for whatever reason, it would be launched in their direction, which when running into had the potential to send the player flying. So I thought that if I got super lucky and one of the blocks shot me upward, I could use it to skip this entire parkour section. The only thing that sucked about this trick is that it was essentially completely RNG. The only thing I could do that was in my control was keep jumping on top of the block over and over again until it either flew out of the map, which it did most of the time, or sent me flying into a random direction, usually also out of the map. But it was worth it just for the chance to skip a couple hands. So I tried it for a very long time, and after 2 grueling hours, I had this happen. Oh, let's go! Oh my gosh, let's go! Oh my goodness. I had made it finally. This was the best I had felt in the entire challenge, but there was something huge that I forgot. There's a second section of the parkour. This time, it was just one gap and one purple hand. However, the stakes with this parkour were at an all-time high. If I somehow made it to the end of this hallway, it would activate the game's next checkpoint, completing this entire parkour section. However, if I was unsuccessful and touched the electric gap, I would die and get sent all the way back to the start of the scene, forcing me to complete the original glitch all over again from the start. Now, I had no plan on how to beat this part of the game like I did for most of Chapter 4. I honestly completely forgot it existed. However, there was one saving grace that made this part possible, being that at the end of the first section, there was a big block right here that I could drag and use to help me get past. Now, I could do the spin glitch, but it was super unreliable and risky, and it would sink if I tried to just drop it into the gap to build a bridge. The only real idea I could come up with was to try tipping the block into the water and jumping, hoping it would give me enough leverage to make it past. So I gave it a go. Oh no. No. Nope, it did not work, and I was all the way back to the beginning. I spent another hour trying to get back on top, and eventually I actually did, but once again, when I tried to get over the electrical pit, I was unsuccessful. After trying this cycle a couple more times, failing with every attempt, I suddenly spotted something that saved everything. These wires up here, which after doing some testing, I realized were physical objects that could be touched, and most importantly, it could be stood on top of. And seeing that there was an overhang of wires going into the electrical pit, I got on top of the block and dragged it as close to the edge as possible, letting me parkour onto the wires. Now, this was great and was the closest I had gotten so far, but the only problem here was I couldn't really move or parkour anywhere else. Pretty much everything around me was walled off, so that way I couldn't cheat like this. But being so close to the end, I thought to just say screw it and take a leap of faith across the rest of the gap, which is where this happened. I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. Yes! 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 I did it! Hit the save, hit the save. After so painfully long, I had made it to the other room. From here, thankfully, I was given a big break. The game is supposed to disable your second grab pack hand entirely after completing this jump, so I was able to cruise through the Baba Chops boss fight and then the following Doctor's boss fight without ever needing the second hand, allowing me to then get the Omni chip, defeating the Doctor. Now, from here, things get a little bit annoying because the Omni hand we get from the Omni chip is a hand that is literally designed to just scan and open doors. So inherently, after upgrading the red hand to the Omni hand, that came with some unfortunate consequences. Like, to escape the Doctor's room, I had to use the Omni hand for the first time. Then after making it back to the safe haven to repair the generator, I had to use the Omni hand 2 more times. However, then I was sent off to the Foundation to place dynamite on all the pillars with the goal of blowing up the factory. The only issue was that to complete this area, for one, I was supposed to use the flare hand to activate some nitrogen cans and collect some of the dynamite, use the purple hand to get up here and make my way to this room with the purple key card, and to activate the red smoke itself into the room, I had to confirm it with the Omni hand, which would give me a gear I could use to finish the section. But the good news was that I was essentially able to skip all of this entirely by instead simply collecting the purple key card, which could be reached by plugging this staircase hole here with a block and making it up that way. Then I could open up the control panel room, which contains this locker hiding the gear that I needed to complete this section. Now, there's a glitch to get the gear early by simply using the right hand in this corner of the locker, which goes through it and grabs the final gear, allowing the section to be completed instantly. And while I tried to recreate this glitch using the left hand, as far as I know, it can only be done with the right, costing me 1 more use, but also saving me multiple in the process. I went outside to plug the gear where it was supposed to be, completing that section, then proceeded to make my way back to the safe haven to see that the prototype had actually destroyed everything while we were gone, which is where I see Doughy, who chooses to blame us and turns into the big salamander beast, commencing his final boss fight. Now, the chase scene following this was pretty simple. I just had to run away from him until I fell into this conveyor belt, taking me to this room. Then what I'm supposed to do is use the Omni hand to open this door and start the final boss fight with Doughy, which was going to be an absolute hassle because to beat him, I had to freeze him with the flare hand to explode nitrogen canisters on his body 3 separate times, which of course went against the challenge. However, remember that flying object glitch that saved me back at the parkour section? Well, this glitch can actually be used again in the starting boss fight room, this time with these old nitrogen canisters that, when done by a wall, actually has a small chance of launching the player out of the map, allowing them to walk all the way around the boss fight and into the room where we killed Doughy, triggering a checkpoint and reloading, skipping the entire process. Now, once again, I had to spend a ridiculous amount of time trying to get this glitch to work, and I even had multiple times where I actually got it to work but was stupid and fell out of the map anyway. But after so much time of trying this, I finally had this attempt. Oh my gosh, okay. Please work. It's saved! It's saved! It's saved! In the top left. I should just be able to restart. Come on. Please load me in there. It worked! It worked! It worked! I had done the final skip needed for this challenge. I still had to use the Omni hand to open up the exit door, use the flare hand to freeze Doughy once he tries to stop us, then use the Omni hand a second time to finally escape the room once he's dead. But then I made it into chapter 4's ending. Poppy ran away from us, the prototype blew up the room, dragging us down into the labs, and then finally, to cap off the entire run, I had to use the Omni hand one more time to open the last door. I put in the VHS tape and watched Huggy Wuggy return, symbolizing that finally this challenge was completed. So now we have our answer. Can you beat Poppy Playtime with just the blue hand and nothing else? Well, you can for chapters 1 and 2, 99% of chapter 3, and then chapter 4 is where things kind of fell apart, mostly thanks to the Omni hand. But in total, to beat Poppy Playtime, you need to use the green hand 4 times, the flare hand 3 times, the purple hand 3 times, the red hand 2 times, and the Omni hand 7 times, so 19 uses in total, which, considering the hundreds of times you're supposed to use it, is a big win in my eyes. And who knows, especially with all of the out-of-map tricks in chapter 4, maybe there are other tricks that could lower that number even further. Either way, thank you so much for watching. Shout out again to the Poppy Playtime speedrunning community for helping me get as far as I did, and let me know what other challenges you'd want to see me do in the future.